Deep Lore, written by Algae Father Anthracite. The campus was basically deserted at this time of night. All of the professors were gone. Most of the students were in their dorms. A few stragglers were in libraries and labs, finalizing book reports and experiments. There were a couple of illicit trysts in the remote classrooms. But deep down, in a long-forgotten but recently rediscovered area, 3 sub-levels under the circulation desk, where no one even bothered to visit anymore, a group was gathering. A quirk of architecture had made a small alcove where bookshelves wouldn't fit, so a small table and chairs were placed. But the scholarly text of the 14th century Romanian love poetry was not the kind of drawer that necessitated such finery, and as a result, they had hardly been used more than a dozen times in a nearly 100-year history of the library. The first to arrive was a tall, skinny man. His hair was an unruly brown mop, and his shoulders were up around his ears as he passed through the narrow bookcases that led to the alcove. He slung a backpack over one of the chairs and sat down. He began to prepare for the arrival of the others. The next to show up was an athletic woman, her long red hair done up in a ponytail, which was sticking out of the hoodie covering the rest of her head. She kept her hands in her pockets of the hoodie. As she followed the directions she had memorized to the alcove, she arrived to find the skinny man laying out a notepad and pen. On the table were some bottles of water. "Hey," he greeted her. "Sup, I thought for sure I was going to be some sort of joke. This is pretty cool though. Good find." She looked at a few books from nearby bookcases. "How did you find this place again?" she asked. "Took a wrong turn at the Romance languages and wandered around for 10 minutes trying to find my way back," he said with a smile. "Nice." She snorted out a short laugh. Just then, 2 more people came around the corner. The couple were holding hands and standing close together. They were both a little on the pudgy side. The man a brunette, the girl a blonde. They both smiled widely, and the girl giggled and waved with a free hand when she saw her friends. Everyone sat at the table and got comfy. After a few minutes of chit-chat, the mophead boy said, "Shall we get started?" "Yeah, let's," said the pudgy boy. "So what exactly is this writing exercise you wanted to try?" The redhead had pulled off her hood to reveal deep blue eyes and more freckles than there were stars in the sky. "It's a writing exercise called Exquisite Corpse. Basically, we each write a part of the story in turn. I thought that it would be fun to see if we could turn out something good. Normally, you wouldn't get to see what the others had written before you, but I thought that it would be more fun to actually use it as a collaborative writing exercise than a game," the pudgy boy explained. "So we are just going to write a paragraph each. Doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. Where's the challenge?" his female partner asked him. The mophead boy responded, "We have to write internally consistent stuff, so the main character can't just pull out a gun in the 3rd act. No deus ex machina. Barry and I set up a few other rules too. No killing characters or plots just because you don't like them. It has to serve the story. No silly or unexplained fantastic elements. So unless the story somehow evolves to include magicians and fairies, no magic. That sort of thing. Personally, I wouldn't mind taking a fantasy bent, but it's up to all of us to decide that. Oh, and we are free to discuss plot points and events before committing to the log." "What's the log?" asked the blonde girl. She seemed excited to start. "This is," said the pudgy boy, and he laid a small blank book on the table. "It's just a blank book. I got it from the campus bookstore. We can write and rewrite any work we do in recession, but once it's in the log, it is forever canon to the story." The redhead looked on the first page of the book and saw all their names written in a neat column, with the date after each. "Cool," she set the book down. "Who goes first?" After several hours, the 4 youths had finished the first entry into the log. It turns out they all had ideas where they wanted to take the story, and had hashed out about 7 pages of text. After everyone had written their section, then the group revised it. The log entry was made and dated. "Who keeps the log?" the blonde asked. "We can just leave it here, on the bookcase, I think. How many people do you think study?" The pudgy boy looked at several of the titles on the nearby shelves. "Slavic poetry. Some sort of poetry, anyway." "Yeah. I didn't even know this section of the library existed." "So we talked about the meeting here," said the redhead. Okay, meet back here next Thursday night, then," asked Mophead. Everyone nodded their agreement, and after stowing the log on the shelf, they filed out of the library. "I can't believe this is your last session," said the blonde. Her eyes are welling with tears, and she leans over and puts her head on the redhead's shoulder. "Ah, don't cry, sweetie. It's not like we'll never talk again. But I have to take this internship if I want to get any kind of on-the-job experience. Trust me, I'd rather be here to finish the story with you guys." The redhead flips through the nearly full pages of the log. "Hand me a pen." Mophead hands her a pen. She opens the logbook, and next to her name she writes a second date and a page number. "This is one of the best things I've ever worked on, and I'm glad I could work with you guys on it. But that being said, I want you to keep going, and if you find anyone you think would be a good fit, make sure to bring them in. I'll be sure to stop by when I can and keep up with the log." I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't believe you guys are all going to graduate at the same time. What happens now?" The heavy-set boy looks around the table. The pudgy boy, the blonde, and the mop-headed boy all looked at him with smiles. "Follow the rules and remember to find new members." The pudgy boy stood and pulled down a black book from the shelf. There was an identical one on the table, and 2 others on the shelf still. He opened it to the first page, and there was a list of 5 names. He wrote the second dates after 3 of them, as well as the volume and page number, and the 5th name had only a single date and a starting page number. "Remember, it's about telling a good story with your friends," said the blonde. "We'll come back to visit when we can, so make sure there's some good twists in the plot when we come." She smiles and hugs him. He just nods. The mophead boy puts all the books of the log onto the shelf, and they all file out of the library. "Welcome, I am the keeper of the log. You have been nominated to join the keepers. Do you understand what this entails?" "I do," said the young boy. He'd been invited by his math tutor, an upperclassman who he'd met at a sci-fi movie night held on campus. He had wondered why his friends and tutor was always busy on Thursday nights. When he had heard that it was a creative writing group, he had asked if he could join, but his friend had told him that the group was closed to new members, but he would let him know if they started to look for new ones. Towards the end of fall semester, his friend had said that they were looking for a new member, and asked if he was willing to commit to a meeting every Thursday night. "It's a serious group, so you can't just flake on them. If you join, you have to stay in for at least a year." He had agreed. Afterwards, he had been led down into the basement of the main library and shown to a little out-of-the-way nook in a disused section of ancient poetry. A little table and chairs had been crammed in. It was then that he learned about the law. 25 volumes of the same continuing story written by dozens of people over just as many years. He was introduced to all the important characters, the storylines, and the plots. He learned the rules and how to participate without disrupting the law. The keeper of the log made sure to tell him that it was a rule that everything in the story was in keeping with the lore of the log. He was given an electronic copy of the lore. The official log was still kept in hard copy in the library, but the electronic copy was updated and maintained by the keeper. Most old members kept up to date on the story. He would need to read the whole thing before he was allowed to add to the lore, but he could help other members edit and brainstorm during their turns until then. At the end of his first session, the keeper pulled out a book. He opened to the first page and showed it to the boy. Dozens of names, dates, and page numbers in 3 neat columns. He was handed a pen. "Add your name to the log." He wrote his name as neatly as he could, along with the date and the starting page number they gave him. He handed the log back to the keeper, who placed it back on the shelf. The other 2 people there applauded quietly with big grins on their faces. The boy looked at his friend and tutor who had invited him to join. "Welcome to the keepers of the deep lore." End of story. Story number 2. The Measure of Humanity, written by Peggy UK. When the Earth made first contact with the Galactic Council, it was not marked by awe or suspicion, but an unexpected enthusiastic embrace. "They're so keen. Councillor Valtor of the Kailari murmured to Councillor Horn of the Velexi as they watched the human ambassador eagerly sign document after document. "Yes," replied Councillor Hearn, his antennae quivering in disbelief. "They have even read every page of every subclause in the cross-sector agricultural trade guidelines." Councillor Valtor looked bemused. "I've heard that they requested the minutes of every committee meeting for the past 50 cycles." When the Master of Records came to classify humanity for the official records in the Cultural Index, his notes raised some eyebrows for the respective species equivalent of those reading it. Humanity had no telepathic gifts, no exoskeletal plating, no innate control of gravity or quantum matter. They were not the fastest, strongest, or long-lived. In fact, as far as the Cultural Index was concerned, humanity was a mid-tier species in nearly every measurable way. And yet, they were so eager, and earnestly so, to be part of a greater galactic community. They seemed to love the Galactic Council and its Byzantine bureaucracy. The interstellar cooperation, its endless forms, protocols, and rules, they embraced them all, organized and color-coded them, and the galaxy didn't quite know what to make of them and their childlike enthusiasm. But that was before the tragedies. The first came quietly. The humans' first outer-system colony on Erebus went quiet. Relief and medical ships were dispatched, but by the time they had arrived, over 10,000 humans, the entire colony, had been lost. Perished due to a native virus which had not been detected by human technology, had wiped out the colony in mere weeks. The loss was staggering. The humans wept, and the council wept with them. Then, only a few cycles later, Mars, one of the largest human colonies, was hit by an unexpected and ferocious meteor storm. Reaching the largest settlement dome, over 250,000 human lives were extinguished in minutes. The survivors seen clinging to their frozen loved ones as the disaster was replayed over the comm networks. An investigation was held and issues exposed. The environmental shield used to protect the dome had been compromised by repeated false alarms that had worn the system down. But this was little consolation to the humans who broke down in grief. Their sorrow was unimaginable. But before the council could help the humans recover, the Gorklan declared war. The humans had made a diplomatic error, a minor one, and forgivable considering the circumstances, and barely worthy of a footnote in the annals of protocol. But to the prideful Gorklan, it was unforgivable. Their war machine began moving like an unstoppable tidal wave. Their invasion was brutal. Humanity, barely out of its home system, was woefully under-equipped to fight the Gorklan. Their ships, barely armed, fought with a desperation which the galaxy hadn't seen in millennia. Their fleets were ill-matched, their weapons crude, but somehow they held the line. They died in their thousands to buy time. Human warships sacrificing themselves to allow civilian evacuation ships to escape. Millions perished, but still the Gorklan attacked relentlessly. Then, the miracle. One badly damaged human destroyer, its systems failing, weapons depleted, had blind jumped out of the battle in a last-ditch effort to escape. It emerged directly in the path of a crippled Gorklan medical transport. The transport had suffered a catastrophic engine failure during a jump and was desperately broadcasting a distress call. Upon seeing the human warship, the unarmed Gorklan crew prepared to meet their deaths. But death didn't come. The humans instead docked. After a tense but brief parley, the humans rendered aid. Their medics, running on exhaustion and grief, treated the Gorklan wounded. Human engineers helped stabilize the ship's reactor and then shared their dwindling resources. By the time the Gorklan help arrived, an unofficial truce had been signed, and when the rescue vessel trained its weapons on the human ship, the Gorklan medical ship maneuvered to block the shot, protecting the humans. The war ended with a treaty that no one, least of all the Gorklan, had expected. The galaxy watched humanity, offering aid and trying to prevent the inevitable collapse. After so much death, after so many failures, the galaxy was sure that humanity would turn inward. Surely, they would close themselves off. And for a while, they did. There were vigils, quiet weeks of mournful art. Cities, which were once full of laughter and joy, were sullen and silent. Entire planetary networks awash with soft music and old videos reading out the names of the lost. And when the humans stopped attending council meetings, the council mourned for their friend. But then, the Lycians' crops failed. Their agricultural sectors collapsed due to a fungal blight, and despite their best efforts, a famine began, and millions began to starve. And then, the humans came. Ships still scarred from the horrors of war arrived carrying food, medical supplies, doctors, engineers, and volunteers. They brought comfort to the dying and hope to the sick, never once hesitating and never asking for anything in return. A human relief worker was stopped by a shocked reporter and asked on a live broadcast, why? The human replied, "We remember what it's like to feel alone, to need help, and to feel the hope of seeing help arrive, and so we help, so others know that they are not alone." It was then that the Galactic Council truly saw humanity, not for their ships or their minds or even their capacity for bureaucracy, but their resilience, for their ability to take everything the universe could throw at them and take it, rebuild and continue, to crawl from the ashes, not with vengeance or anger, but with compassion. Most species faced with events like Erebus, with disasters like Mars and genocidal war, would fracture, would turn in on themselves, would fracture, and some would vanish entirely. But not humanity. They mourned together, and then they healed together. They held their families, their friends, their comrades, and even strangers close, and told them that everything would be okay. In the Hall of Concordance, a new statute was passed unanimously. Presented by the Gorklan and the Lycians, it gave the humans a permanent seat on the Galactic Council. It was not because of their technical prowess or for their strategic genius. It was because of who they were and what the humans represented. Then when asked by a young Ganari diplomat what it was that humans bring to the Council, Councilor Valtor replied, "Hope. When all else fails, when logic, strength, and science falter, humans endure. They may bend, but they don't break. They'll come back stronger, having learned to be better. And in that resilience, they remind us that no matter how dire the situation, there is always hope, and no one has to face the darkness alone." End of story. I would like to thank our T5 members and patrons, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Vidmori, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.